Welcome back to Hannity. The world of Big Brother is about to get bigger if some members of the law enforcement community have their way. Now, according to a report by CNET News, police groups have been asking lawmakers to consider forcing wireless providers to save the text messages of their subscribers for 2 years. Now, they're calling for the Senate to consider amending an existing privacy law. Now, the reason behind the request is to aid in criminal investigation. But the question is this a step too far? And joining me now to debate the issue are the news editor at townhall.com, Katie Pavlich, Democratic strategist, former aide to Senator John Kerry. Mark Hanna is with us. Katie, I am generally extremely supportive of law enforcement. I want them successful in their job to keep our streets safe. And I have no doubt that if we save everybody's texts for 2 years, it'll help them. If we save everybody's emails for 2 years, it'll help them. If we save and record everybody's phone conversations, it'll help a lot. If we videotape everybody 24 hours a day, that's going to help. Right. But where does the line get drawn?
Exactly. Where does the line get drawn? This is equivalent to putting a GPS in everyone's car and seeing where they're going for 2 years. This is equivalent to making everyone wear a recording device and recording their conversations for 2 years. And essentially, and I am also very supportive of local law enforcement and law enforcement in general, but essentially what they're doing here is asking for everyone in the country to be turned into suspects before they have any evidence that they've committed a crime. And in my book, that's a little bit of a government overreach and opening the door right for some more tyranny into people's personal and private lives.
Mark, your position on this?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sean. I hate to say, this is my first time on your show, and I'm shocked that I agree with Katie. This is a matter of not just personal privacy and civil liberties, but it's also a matter of business independence and allowing businesses to operate without intrusion from the government and being told what they need to do in order to take these preventive steps. So, you know, it seems like a lot of overreach, both in private lives. I know a lot of people in law enforcement, and they're doing just fine with the tools they currently have at their disposal.
Look, we want to help them as much as possible, but it's got to be reasonable search and seizure. And I think the way we achieve that, if they have a suspect, we have a system of checks and balances. We have a judiciary. They have the ability, Katie, to go to a court and request a tap on somebody's emails, look, et cetera, and text messaging. And why would you want to put private companies in the middle of that?
Well, and this is the thing, and coming from a private company perspective, private companies like Verizon, T-Mobile, all these tech-type companies, wireless providers, don't store text message information for a reason, and it's because when you start storing the personal private messages of citizens, there's a large possibility that that information is going to get hacked. And guess who's responsible for the private information of their customers? Well, that would be the companies. So they're essentially, the law enforcement is asking these companies to be liable for protecting this private information that they're not storing now in order to help them with their investigations. And on that point, you know, look, you can look at the text messages of people all day and even go as far as email, but you really can't prove who sent that text message. So in the end, this actually isn't the best law enforcement tool that you can use.
All right, Mark, I don't want your experience to be a totally positive one. You did work for John Kerry for a period of time.
Bring it on.
Well, John Kerry said a lot of things, like he went on Bob Schieffer's program and accused our troops of killing innocent civilians and old people in the dark at night during the Iraq War.
Well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about
John Kerry. I'm asking John Kerry and whether or not he's qualified to be Secretary of State. He said, our troops, Bob, are going in the dark at night and committing these atrocities. That was during the Iraq War, very similar to what he said about our troops after Vietnam when he accused them of cutting off limbs and tying electric wires to people's testicles.
Yeah, okay, I don't know what to make of that, but I will say that
should that be an issue
if
he's appointed as Secretary of State?
I think John Kerry is eminently qualified to be Secretary of State, and a lot of Republican senators agree with me on that, and a lot of Republicans in the House
so we shouldn't consider that.
Agree as well.
So we should, if he accuses our troops of atrocities, that shouldn't be an issue?
The totality of John Kerry's record as a war hero and as a fearless advocate for America's military and its public servants working. Listen, he's when it comes to defense, there's nobody who has a better record, who's more knowledgeable. Let's talk about State Department. More knowledgeable about international affairs.
I'm not really quite sure that John Kerry
on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, chairing the Foreign Relations Committee. So I don't know who would think that that resume would disqualify him. He's worked in a bipartisan way as the chair on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
going out and speaking
Go
out
ahead,
against
Katie,
the
what's your
very
point?
people who, my point is, if you'll allow me to speak, my point is that, of course, you would consider the fact that John Kerry has gone out and spoken against the U.S. military and essentially accused them of war crimes when he himself joined the military, and accused a lot of the people who he served with who have a real problem with what he said
John
of
Kerry served
atrocious
his country.
crimes in a time of
Listen,
war.
Hey, Mark,
Katie, I'm not going to let you say that. I'm not going to let you say that.
Mark, we're not talking about that. He accused our troops, not only after Vietnam, but in the Iraq War, of committing atrocities. He was wrong in both cases, and the point is, should that
Is
be
Abu Ghraib not an atrocity?
We're not
John?
talking about his servant, although there are questions about
Abu
his service.
Ghraib
But
in
the
Iraq.
question is, do those things
Let's distract away from John
disqualify
Kerry.
him? And should they come up at the hearings?
The totality of his experience. John Kerry served honorably. He spoke his conscience when he came back from Vietnam, and he spoke his conscience in the course of the
and he
Iraq
said
War.
untrue things in both instances.
Yes.
You can say they're
Absolutely.
untrue, and I'm sure you have a big disagreement with a lot of things
Well, if he wants to
has
accuse our
argued in the
troops
past.
of torture in the dark of night, I think he's
can't-
got to explain
Yeah.
that.
To answer your question,
You can
Sean, it should
disagree with his
absolutely be
policies and you can
considered.
disagree
And
with
to say
what
that
he
John
said, but
Kerry
you
is
can't say he's
qualified
not
for Secretary of
qualified.
Defense is ridiculous.
Oh,
He
this
is not
is-
qualified
this
for
is
Secretary of
ridiculous.
Defense. No,
Thank
you
you
don't
both for-
lead troops into battle as Secretary of Defense.
I find this
with
humorous.
With that
a lot
attitude.
of Republican senators find this humorous as well. He's
Like
qualified
who?
whether or not you disagree with him.
Name one.
Like
Name one.
Susan Collins. Susan Collins went on the
Susan
record and
Collins,
said positive
most
things.
liberal
about it.
Republican in the Senate. All right.